Google, for whatever reason, will say, yeah, I'm not including that in my big database. So if that happens, then you're not going to show up in the search results. So that's the next stage in the funnel.
Welcome to the Magnificent Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top marketing experts in the world and keep you up to date on all the changes and best practices to help you grow your business and stay on the cutting edge. Welcome to the show.
Hello everyone, I'm here with Stephan Spencer, and Stephan is an internationally recognized SEO expert and best-selling author. He is the co-author of The Art of SEO, author of Google Power Search, and co-author of Social E-Commerce, all published by O'Reilly. The Art of SEO, now in its third edition and weighing in at nearly 1,000 pages, is considered the Bible on search engine optimization and boasts testimonials from such industry giants as Seth Godin and Tony Hsieh, and is even used as a textbook in universities. Stephan also hosts a biohacking and life hacking podcast, The Optimized Geek, as well as the online marketing-focused podcast, Marketing Speak. Stephan has spoken at countless hundreds of internet marketing events, including all of the major search and e-commerce conferences such as SES, SMX, PubCon, Internet Retailer, Shop.org, eTail, to just name a few. He's been a contributor to the Huffington Post, Multi-Channel Merchant, Practical E-Commerce, Search Engine Land, DM News, and Marketing Profs. And today we are going to be talking about how to SEO audit your website and stay ahead of the curve and your competition. Stephan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You're obviously qualified to talk about this, and we have a lot to talk about. So I want to go ahead and just dig right in so we can try to cover as much as possible.
Let's do it.
But yeah, awesome. So first off, just give your quick definition on what an SEO audit is and its purpose.
Right. So an audit is a deep dive forensic analysis of your website. So you're going to be looking at on-page factors and off-page factors. On-page stuff would be things that are in the HTML code somewhere. They're in the page, either the rendered page or in the HTML kind of behind the scenes. Now, off-page factors are things that are influencing your rankings that are happening outside of the page, outside like links pointing to your page, or the anchor text that's used in the link, or the position of that link. Is it in the footer of somebody's page, or is it in the main body? So those are examples of off-page factors. There are plenty of others, but you're basically doing a deep dive forensic analysis looking at all these different factors. You could look at the content side of things and see if you're using the right keywords and they're incorporated in the right places in the HTML code. So that whole content side of things. You can look at the technical side of SEO. Are you using things like are you using no index instead of disallow to stop the spiders from putting those pages into the search results? Because there's a nuance there that is it's an important distinction between disallowing bots and no indexing pages, so they no longer show up in the search results, and people get those mixed up all the time. So they're technical stuff to look at, and then there's the link analysis side, looking at the link neighborhood that you're in. Do you have a sufficient diversity in your anchor text in the top level domains that are linking to you, and the topics and themes that are linking to you, the sites that are linked to you? What are they sufficiently diverse in terms of the themes or topics? There's a lot of stuff, but that's kind of the structure that I give to my audits, is the three kind of focused around the three pillars. So content, architecture/technical, and then links. So it's like
Gotcha.
three audits in one: a technical audit, a content audit, and a link audit.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. Well, so what's the first action one should take when you're performing your audit? Like, what's the very first step one needs to move forward with?
Yeah. So it depends on your situation. I mean, if I'm looking at a site that has no link authority, that's very poor in its domain authority or in its trust flow or citation flow, then that's probably the Achilles heel that needs to be addressed first. So, I mean, when I do an audit, I'm doing a comprehensive audit across all 3 pillars, and takes me probably a month to produce all that and run through all my tools and do all the deep dive. But if you just want to get started with auditing and figure, well, what do I need to start with? If you think that you haven't done a good job with the technical side of things, start there. If you think that your link authority is really bad and you can confirm that using a tool like Open Site Explorer from Moz.com, or Majestic.com is another great tool, or Ahrefs, then start there. But it might be a bit daunting to try and do a comprehensive audit if you haven't done one before. So a good starting point is just pick an area where you think that you're really weak, and find some things that are actionable and not too overwhelming to start fixing, right? So some easy fixes.
What would you consider those easy fixes?
Well, let's say, for example, you check to see on the technical side of things if you have done proper redirecting and canonicalizing of potential duplicate content. So you're going to look at things like, do all my pages have canonical tags, canonical link elements to be more technically accurate? Do I point to the correct pages, the correct URLs in these canonical tags? Am I getting picked up by Google with these canonical tags, or are they being ignored? Because a canonical tag is only a hint as far as Google's concerned. It's not an absolute directive. So you can check to see, well, let's see, I'm correctly canonicalizing to the version of my page that has no tracking parameters in the URL. No source equals, UTM source or UTM medium or whatever my tracking parameters are. None of that's in the URL that's in my canonical tag. So that's good. But let's just double check, go to Google and type in info : and then my URL with the tracking parameters, and see if that's getting picked up still. And lo and behold, sometimes it is, even though you have a canonical tag. It's like, what the heck? Google's not obeying my canonical tag. Well, that's because Google only treats it as a hint, not an absolute directive. So that's something that you can easily test for. You just need to understand what a canonical tag does, and then check it, make sure that you have it correctly in place in the head portion of the HTML, and that it's correctly formed tag. You haven't missed a quote character or something. You've quoted on one end of the URL but not the other, or some any kind of thing like that, and then test to make sure that it's actually being obeyed by Googlebot. And then if it's not, you can start addressing that with, maybe it's not necessarily an easy fix, but maybe it is, like employing a 301 redirect instead of a canonical tag, or in addition to. You might not be able to do that if you really need to track the source of where that traffic's coming from, and you use a 301 redirect. Once the visitor comes into that URL with the tracking parameter, you 301 to the version of the URL that doesn't have it, and let's say your analytics software drops the referral source, and so now you don't have any data. Well, that would be a problem that you can't just do a 301 redirect. But if your analytics software can pick up on the referral, store that, and maybe in a cookie or whatever, and then you are able to track the referral source even though you 301 redirect, then that's great. You just solved it with an easy fix. So
gotcha.
There's so many technical nuances and things. I mean, a lot of times you really do need to get an expert involved. But I mean, if there's also my book you can you can read. It's 1,000 pages, so it's not a light read. Yeah, my friend Amy Africa tells me that it's better than Ambien, and I'll take that as a compliment. So.
I hear you.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. There's that 1,000 things you need to try to pay attention to. So we're just try to dig through as much as we can, bring out what's important, what's not important, where we should be spending our time, because there is a lot.
Yeah.
So I think you gave some good information on where to get started, some of the first couple things to look for, and a couple specific things I'd like to ask you about, as that are kind of at the beginning here, are accessibility and indexability. First of all, we want to make sure those are very important. Make sure your site is accessible to the search engines. So can you first talk about how to make sure your site is accessible? I mean, you don't want to do all this work and then nothing's happening. And then also the indexability, and how to make sure your pages on your site are properly indexed. Those are some good beginner parts here. So if you could talk about that for a second, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. So if you think about this more like a funnel situation, where at the top of the funnel you have the pages getting crawled, right? So that's the accessibility part, where the pages are accessible to the search engines, to the spiders. So at the top, you got at the top of the funnel getting crawled. Next stage in the funnel, you have getting indexed. So the pages get crawled by a Googlebot, but did they end up going into the big database, the distributed database or index? And if they didn't, and it happens a lot, right? The page will get crawled, and then Google, for whatever reason, will say, yeah, I'm not including that in my big database. So if that happens, then you're not going to show up in the search results. So that's the next stage in the funnel. Next stage, deeper down in the funnel, so it keeps getting narrower, would be getting these pages to rank. So did the page...
Well, real quick, so before we go there, making sure they're indexed is, can you talk about how do you either identify if they aren't, and what to do to make sure they are, and then then we'll definitely get into ranking.
Yeah. So we'll circle back to what the full funnel looks like, so that maybe you could even have a visual for folks if they go to your show notes or whatever for the episode. So let's start with the top of the funnel, actually, with the crawlability or accessibility to spiders. So getting crawled means that you have pages that are available to the spider and are not really unfriendly to the spider. So what would be an unfriendly sort of situation? Let's say that you have a really, really long URL with lots of parameters in the query string. In other words, after the question mark in the URL, lots of ampersands. So if you have lots of ampersands in your URL, then you probably have a suboptimal situation for crawlability. Because if you have a really long URL like that has lots of parameters, lots of ampersands, then Google is going to look at that thinking, this page may not be unique content. It may be part of a faceted navigation type situation where the sort order changes, or there's different parameters being turned on and off, different facets or attributes, right? So price range breakdown and color and size and brand and so forth. You've probably seen these before on e-commerce sites in particular, where you can narrow down and you get a really long, complex URL, and Google's not really keen on exploring all of those complex URLs and ending up with a lot of duplicate content in its index. So shorter URLs that are more simplified, less in terms of parameters in the query string would be a better situation for crawlability. Another example of a situation where you've got poor crawlability is, let's say you have a big database that's powering your site, and they have to fill out a form to get to that data. So if you imagine Googlebot visiting your site, it's not going to fill out a form. It's not going to choose something from a select list and then type in a search keyword and then hit the search button, right, on your site. So how do I expose all that content? Let's say that you're selling tires. A long time ago, I had a client, TireRack.com, and the way that you'd get to all the make, model, year combinations for all the tires for those make, model, year cars was by filling out a form. It was a very simple form. There wasn't stuff to type into the form, but these were select lists. So those are form elements. So you'd select the make, model, and year from these pull-down lists. And as you selected one, then you select the make, and then now you got the model to choose in the next select list, and that was based on the fact that you made a selection in the make. So now you've selected the model, and then it shows the years in the next select list. And after you've selected that, now you hit go. And that's a form. Google's not going to fill that out. So we needed to provide another pathway into for the spiders to get to all that great content, all those various products. So that's another issue relating to crawlability. Now let's go down to indexability, which is the next stage in the funnel. How do you even check to see that these pages are getting indexed? Well, you can start by just hand checking this with some Google searches. So for example, let's say that you wanted to see if you have a lot of duplicate content going on, or if the page is even getting indexed at all, and it's a product page and there's some unique copy in the product description that's pretty uniquely written, right? So it's not just something very generic that you'd find on a lot of other websites. So you got maybe, 15 words of copy that you've taken from the product description. You put that within quotes, so double quotes on either side of that phrase, and you put that in as a search query into Google. And you see, does your product page show up in the search results for that query? What about the any duplicate pages that might show up as well? Did multiple variations of that product page show up with different tracking parameters or sort orders or things like that, right? And then are there other websites that are returned in the search results as well? In other words, are there sites that are either syndicating your content or stealing it from you, scraping your site and stealing those product descriptions? And so you can see all that. You can also use a tool called Copyscape to look for people that are stealing your content. But just within your own site, you're looking for also duplicate content, and that's an easy way to check it. Another way is to take the kind of core part of your URL and put that in to a Google search query, but add site colon in front of that URL. So site colon, let's say it's www. TireRack.com / / what's a Ford type of vehicle?
Explorer.
So /Explorer / 2017 / right? And then see, are there lots of pages showing up in the search results for that query, or is there just one? Right. So that's another quick way to check on indexability and seeing if the page is indexed or not indexed, and if there are duplicates that are very similar with other parameters and things tacked on at the end.
Now, do some of those other tools allow you to check that, like if in Ahrefs or SEMrush or one of those? Do any of those tools allow you to see which ones are not possibly indexed that is showing as a URL on within your sitemap? I mean, is that possible, or do you have to just go through this manual process? Okay.
No, so that's a great segue. Thank you. So, Dave, basically what you're going to do now is, if you want to do this on a larger scale, hand checking each page individually is not scalable. So you're going to use an SEO tool, and there are many tools that will check the on-page sort of elements and check for crawlability and indexability. So a few of them I'll mention to you. One is called onpage.org, and that's actually there's a whole completely free version of that for up to 100 URL website. So if you have a small website with under 100 pages, you can use that completely for free. It's not a trial version. It is a fully functional version of onpage.org for small sites, and you'll continue to be able to use it for free. So that's a pretty small site, though, if you have under 100 pages. But they have paid options as well for larger sites. So that's one option. Another is just a one-off purchase for actually they have a free version as well, actually, and that's Screaming Frog. So you download the software. It's a license fee that you pay to. It's not like a monthly fee, such as much of the SEO software out there. But the thing about Screaming Frog is, and there's a free version of Screaming Frog as well. So you install it and you try it out and you like it, but you have a small site. Well, you can continue using it for free. There are a few features that are not available until you pay for the software, but a lot of functionality is available for free for a smallish website under 500 URLs. So that's Screaming Frog. It will spider through your whole site. So it's its own spider, just like onpage.org has its own spider too. And it will look for issues where the page might not have gotten into Google. And it could be a problem with a malformed, whatever. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's malformed directive in your robots.txt or a meta robots tag that's got a syntax error in it, or maybe a malformed link, internal links on your navigation or something, and whatever. So it's going to find these different issues by crawling all your pages and then reporting on things like, these are my title tags across the whole site. These are my status codes returned in the HTTP header. That would be things like 301 or 302 or 404 or 200 or 500 server error. Those sorts of things will be reported on. The meta description will be listed as well, and some other things. So that's pretty cool. If you have a really large scale site, then you probably want to use some more industrial strength software or software as a service, such as onpage.org or DeepCrawl. So DeepCrawl is, again, software as a service, like onpage.org, and you pay monthly, but it's got a more robust set of features and capabilities to it, like a software that you install on your computer isn't going to be as sophisticated typically. So I like all three of those tools, and they all provide some different features and capabilities, but these are all solutions that are more scalable than just hand checking page by page.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because when you first were describing that, I was like, oh my God, that would just be horrible. But yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate you, because it sounds like you hit on beginner, intermediate, and higher level options. So that's wonderful. Now to move on to the XML sitemap, which is I'll let you describe it better, but it's what shows up in the SERPs, with the specific links. But when someone does a search, so But can you give some pointers on setting that up right? And then also, can you please talk about how to define, or how you can define what is displayed, what actually shows up in your SERPs, be it the About Us or the Contact Us or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about that, because I know that could play a part in you showing something that will get the attention of somebody when they search for your company.
Okay, so yeah, let me just kind of tease this apart here for a second, because you have some confusingly similar sounding terminology that we need to kind of break apart. First
Please.
off, they have an HTML sitemap. Second thing you have is an XML sitemap. Third thing you have are called site links. And they all sound very similar to each other, so let me quickly define each one of those. So an HTML sitemap is a web page that a lot of sites have, where it's just as a kind of a page of links to deeper level pages of your site, and it's an easy way for Google to find deeper pages to your site. So, but that's just a regular web page, just like your About page or your Contact page. It's a sitemap page. It's a regular HTML page with a bunch of links on it. So that's an old school technique. It's been around forever. Now an XML sitemap hasn't been around as long as an HTML sitemap, and that is something that was developed by the search engines. They came together and decided on a standard. And so the sitemap standard is around having an XML file with a long list, or maybe it's a short list if you've got a small site, but it's a list of all your URLs with a couple of distinctions. One is that you don't want to include non-canonical URLs in there. Only your canonical URLs, only your definitive source URLs, and not any of these duplicates should be included in the sitemap file, in that XML file. Another thing that you can include is a priority code for each of these URLs. So you can say, well, between 0 and 1, how important is this page? And that will affect how often it gets crawled. So remember back to our visual of a funnel, and at the top of the funnel you have crawling. Well, if I want to influence my crawling, the Googlebot crawling my site, and I want to influence it like going to certain pages more often than others, here's a great place to do it, is the XML sitemap. So that's through the priority field in the sitemap. And then you have what's called site links, which are completely different kind of thing. And that is when you look at your listing in the search results, and let's say you did a search for your brand name or your company name or your URL, your domain, and you see in the search results that you have just one listing, and it's not a very good one. But then you do the same sort of thing, search for your competitor's name, and they have an amazing listing with like a bunch of other sub-listings underneath it. And that's all part of the main listing, but it takes up a lot more screen real estate, and those sub-items that are also links to other pages within their site, those are called site links. And that's amazing when you get site links, especially if you have those show up for search queries that are searched on pretty regularly. So you can have site links that are more condensed and are kind of small and don't take up much of the search listing, or you can have ones that are expanded and take up quite a bit more, and you can have fewer or more site links. It's not always the same number. So that's a completely separate topic we can come back to, but let me go back to the XML sitemap question you had. So how do you set this up right? How do you make sure that it's configured properly and so forth? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to probably use a tool that will generate the sitemap for you rather than creating it by hand. Creating by hand would be really painful. So in order to do that, you're going to need to look at, well, what kind of CMS am I using? Am I using WordPress? Am I using Magento Commerce or Shopify or whatever, right? So Joomla or Drupal or whatever. So depending on the platform that you're using, there will be different software solutions for creating an XML sitemap for you. And this is all like automatic, right? You don't have to do a lot of heavy lifting here. You just have to pick a software. So let's say you're running WordPress. You got a WordPress site. Well, there are plugins that will generate the XML sitemap for you, including Yoast's SEO plugin. So you probably already have Yoast installed if you have a WordPress site or blog. So yeah, just make sure that it's turned on, the feature for creating the XML sitemap. And then you can check to see, is that sitemap URL listed in your robots.txt file. And how do you check that? Well, you just go to your domain name, whatever it is, .com/robots.txt. And have a look, see that there's a sitemap directive, so sitemap : and then the URL of your sitemap file. Go to that URL, check, make sure it loads, and it should be an XML file, which looks kind of like HTML, but it's a different format. And then you can go into your Google Search Console, which is a free tool, and check to see that Google has picked up on that sitemap, and you can submit your sitemap there if it hasn't. But if it's in the robots.txt file, which is a best practice, then Google should be able to discover it on its own. So you check there, make sure that it's been picked up, and then you can see some reports in Search Console, in Google Search Console, that you wouldn't get if you didn't have a sitemap. So things like you can see how many of those URLs that are in your sitemap have been picked up by Google and indexed. So that's pretty cool. So again, you don't want to check by hand each URL to see if it's gotten into the index. So here's a free tool that everybody should have. It's provided by Google. So I mean, you're getting it direct from the source, and it's amazing how many folks don't have that set up or aren't utilizing it. So it's just at google.com/webmasters.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, you gave some really good pointers there, and I think you gave some that let people breathe a little bit sigh of relief with all this technical stuff. You're like for WordPress, make sure you're utilizing that plugin, and then you can check to see if it's working here. I think that's the kind of pointers that people love to hear.
Yeah, and I should also mention this too, that you don't know what you don't know. So there's a lot of technical nuance here that you just don't know because nobody ever taught you this. So if a 1,000-page book is daunting to you, and it's daunting for a lot of people, you can take the kind of online learning approach instead. So I for one have a course on SEO auditing. It's a 10-hour online training with screencasts showing using the tools and how to extract all the actionable insights out of these different tools. So you get to kind of watch over my shoulder as I'm navigating all these tools and reports and all that sort of stuff. So that might be a better way to learn for some folks than just reading, or even just reading blog posts and listening to podcasts and trying to cobble together a strategy from all that. So,
oh yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's no podcast or no couple of articles here and there will be able to give somebody as better learning and map to how to do everything than a course like yours. So absolutely, we're just trying to let people know that this stuff is important, and then you got to take the next level if you're going to do it right and learn on a deeper level from somebody like yourself. Now, to move on, you mentioned site architecture a bit ago, and I don't know if this is less of a technical thing and more of a human element where you make sure it's not too hard to get to your best pages. But can you quickly just touch on this? Your advice on what to look for when you're thinking and auditing your site architecture part of your audit?
Right. So think about it this way, like the way that you have your site architected in terms of the navigation structure, things like breadcrumb navigation, your top nav, your side nav, your footer nav, related products, related pages, popular features and that sort of stuff, the ways that you provide links to deeper pages, that's how you spend your page rank. So you earn your page rank by having great content and doing outreach to influencers and all that, and you get links pointing to your site. And then from that, you spend your page rank. And you spend it by linking to your most important pages. So let's say that you have your most important product. It's your highest margin, best-selling product, and it's 3 clicks away from your homepage. That would be really dumb. That would be a really bad idea because you haven't given it its best shot at ranking. Your homepage gets most of the links, right? The most authority of your site is probably sitting on your homepage, and your homepage needs to pass that page rank, that authority, to the next level of most important pages. And if you haven't taken your best-selling, highest margin product and linked to that from your homepage, you really missed out. So that's why you'll find a lot of times featured products or whatever kinds of features or what's new or that sort of stuff isn't just about what's new or things we like, our top picks, but these are the things that matter most from an SEO standpoint to us.
Gotcha. So to kind of break this down also, I mean, you made a great point about if it's 3 clicks away, you're wasting it. So to let people figure this out rather than them guessing which of their other pages are the best pages, I mean, is it fair to say, go through your Google Analytics and get down, I don't know exactly the navigation off the top of my head, but find the pages that have the most traffic, right? And then make sure those are, if you can get them to be 1 click away, try to make that happen. Is there another indicator to know which pages to try to make them, 1 click away, if at all possible, from your homepage? Like, what advice do you have, in regards to helping people identify and then try to be as close to the, as few clicks away of the homepage as possible?
Right. Yeah. So let me just preface this by saying that you don't want thousands of things on your homepage because that's going to just make your page look really cluttered, and that doesn't lend to a good user experience, and then you'll get smacked for that by Google. So try and keep it to at most a couple hundred links on your homepage. That includes all the nav links that you'll expose when you mouse over and that sort of thing. So with that,
the drop downs.
With that said, if you are trying to look for low-hanging fruit, to use consultant speak, right? So these are opportunities where maybe you have a ranking on page 2 and you want to get onto page 1. Like let's say that you're position 11 and you want to get onto the bottom of page 1 and move your way up from there. Well, that's low-hanging fruit, right? So it just give the page a little push. Maybe link to it from a higher level page, and that might be enough to move it onto page 1 from the top of page 2. So that would be a great starting point. Is look for those.
Find out which ones are almost ranking, are ranking from 10 to 20 or whatever, or 10 to 15. So find those pages.
Yeah.
That what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be one example. Another would be to look at your paid search if you're doing AdWords and seeing what are the highest converting pages there, like what are my top converting products and categories and so forth over on page search, and then use that to influence your decisions around where to flow page rank to. Another thing would be to look at the keywords that are performing the best on paid search and go after those keywords organically. And
how do you know which pages to attribute those to? Whatever the AdWord campaigns are directed towards, I guess. But sometimes those are landing pages, though, conversion pages. So how would you decide on best performing keywords to map that to a particular page? From an AdWords campaign. What's your line of thinking there?
Right. So let's say that you've got 1,000 different keywords. Just to use round numbers here, 1,000 keywords that you're buying on AdWords, And of those 1,000, let's say that you found one that is a real sleeper of an opportunity from an organic standpoint. It's doing really well for you on AdWords, either generating a lot of sales or a lot of inquiries, and you want to target that page in organic, and you're not ranking for it organically. So then you would go and you'd find the page that's well, first of all, you'd put that keyword in to Google, and then site : yourdomain.com, whatever your site is, right? And so that will restrict the results from Google to just your site. So these are pages on your site that correspond to that particular keyword, that are relevant to that particular keyword, and then pick one that you think this is the best. This one has the best opportunity to rank because of the links that it gets and the quality of the content and whatever else. And then that's the page that you choose to link to from your homepage.
Okay. Now, what's your advice on linking from homepage? Just like the drop-down menus, because you made a great point. You don't want to sacrifice, best SEO practice in this regards and this topic here for a crappy homepage,
Right.
Be it too cluttered. So what's your advice on linking? Is it like through a drop-down menu, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, so this is another thing I have to preface my response by saying that things that are hidden by default get discounted by Google. So anything that's in a drop-down where you have to mouse over to see it is not going to get as much credit as something that is a link that's exposed by default. That's just like a top-level nav that you can see without mousing over. So you got to bear that in mind. You also need to bear in mind that if it's kind of tucked away in the page, there are ways of tucking things away so that they're not cluttering up the page, but then you're affecting the SEO power that bit of content or that link has. So if it's in a tab that's hidden by default, let's say you have a product page and you have 3 different tabs. The one that's shown by default is the product description, and then the tab that is the next tab over that's not displayed until you click it is the technical specifications for that product, and then the next tab over from that is the reviews. So you're not able to see the reviews, customer reviews for that product until you click on that third tab. Well, all those reviews and any kind of keyword-rich copy that's part of those reviews, any kind of links that included there, none of that is going to get the same emphasis that the product description gets, because that's in the tab that's visible by default. So that's another consideration. And then lastly,
when you say the tab that's visible by default, you mean like the about us, in the words about us is visible by default. When you hover over that, then you could have 5, 10, 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever. Is that what you mean by visible by default?
No, I'm referring to once you're on a page and you start scrolling down and you see that, oh wow, this has got a lot of information. So what they've done to collapse that information is the tab sort of thing going like down the page, right? So you might have 3 tabs, and you have to click one of the tabs to see the content behind. It's a hidden div, in other words, if you're familiar with CSS. So anything that's in a hidden div, or like here's another example that's kind of a similar sort of concept. You have an FAQ page, and it's got an accordion type thing going on where you have to click on a plus sign next to the question to display the answer. So you just see the questions for everything, but then all the answers are collapsed, and you have to hit the plus sign in order to show it. I'm sure you've seen web pages like that. So any of that stuff that's collapsed and hidden by default doesn't get as much credit as the stuff that's displayed by default. So the question gets weighted heavier in this example by Google than the answers do. And that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you need to think about like all the stuff that I'm trying to get to rank am I tucking it away in a place where it's not going to get counted by Google very much? So and this is a balancing act. You got to have really good usability, and you have to have good SEO. So let's say that you are going after this really valuable keyword, and you're not ranking well for it, but you want to incorporate a link to this page that you've created that's a valuable content page about that keyword, and you want to provide a link on your homepage in a non-cluttered way and in a valuable way, so it's good for users, not just there for SEO purposes. Don't just slap it into a tag cloud or something. Make a valuable section of this of the homepage for these things. Like I don't know, it could be like trending products, like new hot products or something, or hot trending articles or something like that. And it's not because they're hot in the sense that they're getting a lot of whatever votes or something. It's because you've handpicked them to rank higher. So you're letting them bubble up to the top of your site tree. So that's it's a complex topic to talk about things like navigation and taxonomy and internal linking structure. Not quite as technical as the other stuff we were talking about earlier, but there's a lot of nuance to all this.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. All right, we're running a little bit short on time here, and I have a lot that I want to ask you. How about we try maybe kind of a little fire drill or fire chat here and try to answer these questions as concise as you can.
Okay, lightning round.
Lightning round. Knowing that at the end here, we'll direct people to where they can learn more from you and dig deeper onto some of these things. But I want to bring to light at least some things that people need to pay attention to. So let's try to, there's a good 5 to 6 questions, 7 questions left here that I really wanted to get your thought on. So let's just see how brief we can go, then we'll direct them back. So HTML markup. Please speak on the importance of this and what one should pay attention to when setting up the pages or trying to clean up your pages.
Okay. Start with title tags. That's the most important on-page element. Don't worry so much about meta descriptions because those aren't influencing the rankings at all. And completely don't worry about meta keywords because they never counted in Google. Pay attention to keyword prominence and where the keywords are placed in the HTML and in the body copy, and not so much about the keyword density. I don't track keyword density. I don't care about keyword density. It's not about 3.4 occurrences of this 3-word phrase in the copy. It's about, is that prominent in the HTML? And whether it's an H1 or an H6 or a font tag doesn't really matter. It's just how prominent is it for the user and in the HTML. So on the rendered page and in the HTML code in the source. So start with if you have limited time, just start with your title tags and work through your most important pages. Start with the top of your site tree, home page, secondary level pages, then tertiary level pages, then quaternary level pages. Just work your way down the site tree and redo your title tags and make them more keyword rich and more compelling to get the click, and lead with the important keyword towards the beginning of the title, not at the end.
Gotcha. And the meta descriptions, they don't serve SEO purposes, but they do serve the human elements. So you just want to try to speak in natural language, and that's where you basically your ad side comes in, and your advertising side of your brain comes in, and you're getting people to click. Am I correct in this?
Yeah. So it's
saying that
it's not a ranking factor, but it is used in the snippet that's displayed a lot of times. So
gotcha.
That will compel the click. And so you might be at position 3, but you might get more clicks than position number 2, your competitor, because you have a better listing, better title, and a better meta description that both of those would be showing up in your search listing, and people look at that and then they look at the competitor and they see the competitor's not good at all with like copyright 2016, all rights reserved, legal notices, privacy policy, and it's like, well, that's not helpful, and they don't click. They click on you.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, Flash and JavaScript navigation, good, bad,
Okay.
and how to identify and your advice on the usage of these.
So Flash is kind of dead. Most people are moving away from Flash if they haven't already, and HTML5 is what they're doing instead for the more interactive, animated type aspects of your component. And Ajax is there's a lot of capabilities there with HTML5 and with Ajax, which is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So the problem from a navigation standpoint, if you're using JavaScript-based nav or Flash, which you're probably not using Flash anymore, but if you are, the problem is that it's not search engine optimal. So you may get Google crawling that content. Google gets better and better over time at crawling JavaScript and Ajax, and so you might get crawled, you might get indexed, even though it's a JavaScript-based navigation. However, it's best practice to make it as simple as possible for Googlebot. So if you can replace a JavaScript or Flash-based nav with just a CSS-based nav, it still has really cool effects and stuff on mouse overs and things like that. That's best practice, and that's going to give you a better outcome as far as your SEO.
Okay, cool. I was going to get into this, and Stephan, I might try to save this for future future podcast, but talking about link text diversity, identifying your bad links, identifying your good links. So I'm going to skip over that. Just understand that the listeners out there, that you do need to pay attention to your bad links, and you got to pay attention to the link text diversity, and that's something I want to dig into. And I mean, do you agree, Stephan? That's basically a podcast in and all of itself to talk about that part, and we can skip over that for now. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in the future, because I have a lot of learning to do in that area, and I assume other people do as well. So let's skip over that, and we'll come back to it. But you can learn from Stephan on that, and we'll let everybody know how to learn from him. Duplicate content. Once discovered, what do you do?
Yeah, so you want to eliminate that duplicate content and collapse the duplicates together, aggregate the page rank, and a canonical tag, which I mentioned earlier, is a really good starting point. Everybody should be using canonical tags on their site. Every page should have a canonical tag on it. And whether it points to the page that you're on or it points to another page is based on what's going on with the duplicate content situation. Is that a duplicate page or not? Does it need to be collapsed into another page? So canonical tags, although they're really powerful for duplicate content, they're not foolproof. They're only a hint. So you need to check to make sure that the canonical tags are being obeyed, and if not, then use a 301 redirect, which is an absolute directive, and it will be obeyed. So that's your kind of foolproof method for collapsing duplicates, is using redirects, 301s. And so basically when you have duplicate content, you're squandering PageRank because you have multiple variants of the same page, and Google is not aggregating the PageRank from between all whatever versions of those to one. Yeah,
you're basically you'd rather have one solid page that's the real one rather than a fifth of page link juice coming for you and the ranking going for you. Okay, cool. Site speed. How can you just quickly let everybody know how to check this, and what you should do once you've identified the areas, or how to identify the areas, and some next steps for that?
Sure. So there are multiple tools for this. There's a free tool from Google called PageSpeed Insights. So just Google that, right? PageSpeed Insights, and put in your URL of your homepage, and it'll check to see how well you perform from a site speed standpoint for both desktop and mobile users. So it'll give you different scores for desktop and for mobile, and they'll give you some suggested fixes to make things like minifying JavaScript and CSS, or using CSS sprites, or optimizing images, making them smaller, and using better compression and that sort of stuff. So that's a great free tool. You can check your download time of your pages using tools like webpagetest.org. You can use full page test from Pingdom. So that's so FPT, full page test, is just go to pingdom.com and use that.
Yeah, I think we're good there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gave some good. You pointed people in the exact direction, and now they got to do the work, unless they hire somebody like you. All right. Let's see. Keyword cannibalism. Just quickly give the brief definition of that and what to do and how to fix.
Yeah. So let's say that you have. Well, there's different kinds of cannibalism, so let me do this real quick. So let's say that you are buying a keyword, and you're spending a lot of money on that keyword, and you're also ranking organically. You actually could be cannibalizing your organic with paid. So in other words, you're paying for traffic that you would have gotten for free. So that's one type of cannibalizing. And yeah, let's just start there, because that's a costly one. If you're, let's say you're buying your own brand name as a keyword, and you think, well, I need to buy my own brand as a keyword because I have competitors who are buying my brand also, and they're going to outrank me in the paid ads. But what you can do as a test, and I'm a big fan of testing, test everything. SEO is an experimental science. Is you could say, well, let's just for a day, or just for some amount of time that's statistically significant, let's turn off our paid search for that keyword and see what happens to our organic. If it turns out that our organic rises to the level that the paid search, what was missing from paid search, it basically makes up the difference, then I know that I was cannibalizing my organic with paid search.
And when you say cannibalizing, you mean like people are going to click in on the paid one, so you're paying for that, when if they just would have seen you down below, they would have clicked on you there instead? Or are you talking about you're not even going to show?
No, you're showing both places, but people are choosing to click the paid ad.
Gotcha.
You're paying for that instead of getting it for free, the traffic.
Understood. Gotcha.
Yeah, I have a whole article on Search Engine Land about cannibalization. It's called something like search for Google for my name, Stephan Spencer, and then cannibalistic or synergistic.
Okay.
Because
and
that's
do you
part
dig
of the title of the article.
And do you also dig into where your site has multiple pages that target the same keyword? You talk about that as well?
Not in that article, no. But
okay.
Let's just briefly talk about that. So let's say that you have multiple pages that rank for a keyword that you care a lot about, and they rank in different places, some not on page 1 and some on page 1 and so forth. Mm-hmm. You need to look at, well, what is my conversion rate on each of these pages? Like a conversion event can be signing up for my newsletter, or filling out a contact us form, inquiry form. It doesn't have to be like a purchase.
Or time on site, yeah.
So you just pick something that is meaningful for you as a metric, and that page should be the one that you favor. And so if you are getting a lot of traffic to a suboptimal page from a conversion standpoint, then you want to maybe even 301 redirect that page to the one that's going to do much better for you from a...
Even if it's not a duplicate, it's just ranking for the same keyword.
Yeah, and then make sure that the most, you don't want to go 301 redirect a page that was content rich with 51 tips for XYZ topic, and then just go to a very sparse landing page or squeeze page that says, hey, if you want to get all sorts of tips on XYZ topic and blah, 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 then give us your email address and get the PDF. Now you've gone from a keyword content-rich page to a very thin content page. That would be a bad idea. So you want to incorporate content onto the redirected page. But yeah, so cannibalization is basically, is my most valuable page being presented for a particular keyword that I'm going after. If it's not, if it's a suboptimal page and I want a different one there, then I got to figure out what I'm going to do to get that preferred page to rank. And it might be a 301 redirect, it might be rejigging things in your internal linking structure and your navigation and so forth. It could be getting more links to that preferred page.
And definitely link to the preferred page from that other page, correct?
Yeah. But okay. Let's say that the non-preferred page has more links from external websites. You could, if you don't want a 301 redirect, you could go to those folks who have linked to that non-preferred page and ask them to change the link and say, hey, I've got this better version of this page. I see that you linked to this version on my site, but this one has the latest XYZ, and it's got even more tips, and it's got, like, you know, a PDF checklist and everything. You might want to link to that one instead. So that's an option as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, there's more I want to ask about, but we got to let you go. So let me just ask you this. If you've been, how do you identify if you've been penalized by any of these algorithm updates? And then either go ahead and talk about the steps right now to what you do to fix and remedy, or you can maybe just point somebody to an article if you've already talked about this.
Yeah, well, that's a big question.
It is a big question, which is why I gave you that option of, I'm sure you've touched on this, but maybe just, I mean, the steps can be, this is how you find out, and go read my article over here to figure out how.
Yeah, so there's definitely more than just an article that you're going to have to read. I have a whole chapter in the Art of SEO dedicated to, I think it's chapter 9, is Panda, Penguin, and penalties. So
okay.
Panda and Penguin are two algorithm updates that were the bane of SEO's existence. One more dealing with bad quality content, and the other dealing with bad quality links. So Penguin was about bad quality links, and Panda was about bad quality content and content farms and that sort of stuff. So you can read all about it in that chapter of The Art of SEO. And I'll tell you what I'll do for I don't know if that chapter is in the I have like a sampler of The Art of SEO. It has like maybe 5 chapters in it. I'll give you a link to that. I can't promise that chapter 9 is in that, but I'll give that as a freebie to your listeners so they can at least dig into some of this content from the book for free. Yeah, it's well worth the money. It's not that expensive, $37 or something on Amazon for The Art of SEO. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a big topic.
It is, and I apologize for asking that question at the end. That's why I was just like, just let me know how you tell people if they know they've been penalized, and then just let me just point them to where to go read about it.
Well, even that question is a big one. Like, just how do I know if I've been penalized? Well, then I have to talk about what the difference is between algorithmic penalties and manual penalties. A manual action you can check to see if you've been hit with inside of Google Search Console. So there's a place in there to see your manual actions if you have any. Manual penalty, in other words.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, if you could supply that, and then obviously let people, get a taste of your book, and then they might, obviously move on to knowing that they need more. Yeah. So, Stephan, just let everybody know how they can continue to learn from you.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of resources on stephanspencer.com. So if you go to the resources section on stephanspencer.com, you'll see I have like white papers, checklists, and things like that, PDF downloads. I have videos and screencasts. I have archived webinars. I have presentations from conferences where I spoke, articles that I've written, like 100 articles from Search Engine Land and a whole bunch of other places where I've been writing. And so that's a great repository. But if you just want like an online course on how do I audit my website, what are the steps, what are the most important tools, how do I get the most out of Google Search Console, Screaming Frog, how do I audit my link neighborhood and my technical SEO and so forth, I've got a 6-module online course that is fantastic, and it's some 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's like zero risk.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, there's from the stephanspencer.com homepage, there's a link to the online course. It's just underneath. Scroll down a bit. There's like these 4 blue Post-it notes, and one says online training. Click on that, and you'll get all the details, and you'll be able to sign up. It's a $500 course. That's the discounted price. Normal price is $5,000. So
okay, awesome. And just everybody, just for the listeners who aren't reading this, it's Stephan Spencer is StephanSpencer.com. All right, Stephan, I appreciate it. I already know what our next podcast is going to be about. And until next time, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.